now for something a little bit more technical, a little bit more involved, color management. Color management in Photoshop as it relates to web design. So you may have experienced this in your travels when you're working with Photoshop, specifically with Photoshop for web design, that we get colors shifting between what we see inside Photoshop and what we're getting inside a web browser. So how do we set up Photoshop to avoid this color shifting? Well, the ultimate goal here is we want to match as closely as possible colors that are displayed inside Photoshop with, as I say, what we're seeing inside browsers like Chrome and Firefox, and even on mobile devices like Android devices and, of course, iOS devices like iPads and iPhones. So these colors should not shift. Now, before I really jump into this and before we really delve into this, what you need to know is that Photoshop applies its color management not only to images that it displays within the Photoshop interface, but also to the files that it saves out. So these color management profiles are getting saved with your files as well. So the best solution to avoid this color shifting is to disable Photoshop's color management for RGB images. And in doing so, RGB colors on screen are forced and saved to match the overall color value. So here's what we're going to do is I'm going to head up to the edit menu here inside Photoshop, and then I'm going to head all the way down to color settings. Go ahead and do the same here. And then from the settings menu, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out to monitor color. Go ahead and choose the same option there. And then all of the settings beneath that, I'm just going to leave exactly as their default. So go ahead and click on OK. All right. Now we've set our color space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and open up a file here. Now this is actually kind of a neat trick, by the way. This is sort of an aside, and I'll be sure to mention this in our travels later on to remind you. But this seemingly gray, useless background, try double clicking on it, and that's a shortcut to get to the Photoshop Open dialog box. Kind of a neat trick, but completely unrelated to what we're talking about here related to color management. So go ahead and double click on the gray background, choose File, Open, Command-O, Control-O, whatever you want. Head to your Open dialog box and go ahead and grab a file. Now, I'm grabbing goodbyeworld.png out of our project files folder. You can grab whatever file you want. It doesn't really matter. There's my snowman, which he's really had enough. So there you go, as you can see. Now, what we want to do is we want to assign a color profile temporarily to this guy while we work on him inside Photoshop. And we're going to need to do this for every single file that we work on in Photoshop in a web design capacity. So here's how we do it. I'm going to head back to the edit menu now, and then down to Assign Profile. Now, unfortunately, Assign Profile is getting cut off on me there, but there we go. And we get this warning here. Changing the document profile can affect the appearance of layers. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Now, inside this Assign Profile dialog box, I'm going to switch to Working RGB Display. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and click on OK. And that should basically do it for me. Oh, the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure underneath the View menu that Proof Colors is not turned on. It's deactivated, so just make sure there isn't a check mark there beside that guy. And that should pretty much do it for us. Now, the other thing that I want to mention, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, I'm totally foreshadowing. In the previous exercise, I showed you how to create a keyboard shortcut in one of the previous exercises, I think it was a few exercises back, we created a keyboard shortcut for the Save for Web and Devices dialog box. We haven't actually seen this dialog box, and I want to show you this dialog box in much more detail, but very quickly here, related to color management and color profiles, when we're actually using that dialog box, you can choose File and then Save for Web and Devices, or of course use your new keyboard shortcut, and head into this dialog box. When we're using this dialog box, make sure that Convert to sRGB is not turned on. Make sure that guy's turned off. And when we're saving out as the JPEG file format, make sure Embed Color Profile is also not turned on either. Okay, now again, I know I'm totally jumping ahead into this dialog box. I haven't even given you a proper tour of this dialog box, but this is important to know and it relates to color management. So that's how that works. So remember, every time we open up a file, we want to work on a file in a web workflow, a web capacity, we have to assign that new color profile. Okay, it's technical, it's tricky. You know, it might even be an issue that you're really not even concerned about, but I wanted to include it here for you.